Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I connect successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Gina Kotner, a business owner who has mastered delegation and figured out how to run her agency working only 10 hours per week, and Louise Brogan, a LinkedIn expert who helps B2B service companies leverage LinkedIn to gain new clients. So if either of those sound interesting to you, please make sure you go back and check out all of our past episodes, and you can check out those interviews with those awesome ladies. Today's episode is brought to you by my company, Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is dedicated to providing financial clarity and profit maximizing solutions to small businesses. The team at Clara CFO are seasoned accounting professionals with a heart for small business. We help growth-minded entrepreneurs thrive through fractional CFO services and financial education. To learn more about Clara CFO Group and how we can help your business, visit claracfo.com. Or you can just email me directly at hannah@claracfo.com. So I actually met today's guest recently in person, which is nice. It's nice to meet people in person again at the EO Alchemy Conference for the West Coast. So I love being able to connect with other amazing and inspiring entrepreneurs through EO, which is Entrepreneur Organization. So if you're looking for a group of like-minded individuals and you have a business and it's thriving and growing and you're looking to connect with other people, make sure to go and check out eonetwork.org and see if that's an organization that might align with some of your goals for your business. So today's guest is Tracy Marlowe. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. So Tracy finds her joy freeing up top marketing talent from the confines of traditional workplace while inspiring them to do their best work. Her advertising agency, Creative Noggin, has been 100% virtual since they opened, and their success is measured as a balance of team member satisfaction and a thriving client base. That sounds great. I'd love to hear more. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we got to just briefly meet at EO or at the Alchemy Conference. And as soon as I met you, I was like, okay, she's doing really awesome things in this world. And I wanted to hear more just about how you started your business, because I know you've had the business for quite a long time, since 2008, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about how you got started?
Sure. It was an interesting journey for me. I was working at an agency, and I was working, full time. I was pretty busy but really happy and climbing in my career. And in 2008, I had a baby, and it was my first child, and it was really a big shift for me. I mean, just all of a sudden, my big priorities just shifted. Had at that point been really focused on career growth, climbing the ladder, achievement, and suddenly, I have this little person at home, and she just became a bit the center of my world, and I found myself still really, really busy at work. I was working, late into the night, many nights. And, I really wasn't seeing my baby grow up. And I came to a point where I just realized I needed a change. And so I quit and then ended up starting Creative Noggin. And what I did was I wanted to empower myself, right? To be able to have that balance, that work-life balance, and to be able to spend time with my daughter. But I also wanted to be able to still have a career that I could be proud of, work with people I liked. I gave me that flexibility. And the thing that was really lovely about it is as the company grew, and we started bringing in other employees, it tended to be women. This was 2008. Obviously, there was a lot going on economically at the time. And because of the climate, I decided to go ahead and just try being 100% virtual. I'd worked in agencies for years, and my biggest and best clients really never set foot in the agency. Most of the time I went to them. And so the old-fashioned, idea of having this really cool office space where you attracted clients to do your big dog and pony show just didn't seem to hold true. With the internet and the capabilities those days, I felt, people weren't paying for that cool office space. They were just paying for a Creative Noggin. They
Mhm.
wanted somebody who really was talented and could help them look at their business in a different way. And so I thought that as long as we were able to hire real, spend our money and resources hiring really talented people, uh, we could we could bring really bright minds to our clients, and that the office space wouldn't matter. And then what it allowed me to do is to hire a lot of really talented women who I was able to empower as well to have their career, but yet we really embraced work-life balance and allowed those women to just have that flexibility. Family first, or has really been our culture. And if a woman needs to leave in the middle of the day to go to her child's school or to go see some sort of a performance, or not even all of our employees are not all mothers. I mean, some are, we've got a woman who's a musician, and she leaves every Tuesday to be a DJ on the radio station.
That's
She comes in
awesome.
early that day, and it empowers her to do something that she really loves and is passionate about. So I love that. I love being able to do that and to help our team members just feel more well-rounded in their lives, and like they're not sacrificing themselves in order to have a career. So.
That is great. Do you have I we weren't planning on talking about this, but I have questions. Do you have any specific policies that you have in place to help support that flexibility for your team members? Or just if whether it's, time off policies or just internal stuff that you guys are even like
I think it's really more
values.
just sort of our culture. I mean, we still pretty much have an 8 to 5, work day, but it's also just a policy of trust that, we know that people are going to come in. I mean, I will say there's a lot of things that we've learned over the years. We utilize personality testing in hiring. I don't believe that everybody should work from home, even though there's a surging interest in people wanting to work remote. A lot of people think they want to work from home. Not everybody's cut out to work from home. It's only certain
Mm,
personality types. So we recognize that not everybody is that's not the best environment for everybody. But we also, I think a lot of people thrive in that environment. And so we do have a culture of trust. We also, though, have a lot of technology that we utilize for communications, so that really, even though we're all in our home, I think most of us don't feel disconnected. We're talking throughout the day and communicating throughout the day. I feel like I actually communicate more with my team members now than I did when I was in an office space. Sometimes, physical walls can make you feel more separate. You don't want to go interrupt somebody, but when we've got technology and we're IMing throughout the entire day and connecting with each other. Our project management systems are all highly communicative. And so we talk on the phone, throughout the day. And so I think, just having a system where we are, just having processes in place where communication flows really easily, trusting our people, that they know that as long as they're getting their work done and that they're working the hours um, that, we trust them to get things done. And so I think we do have a policy in terms of like, they do need to get they need to get their 8 hours in. And most of our folks are full-time. So, but as far as, I don't know that we have any other specific policies.
mhm.
I mean, we have a handbook, kind of outlines how it all works, but um, I think that's probably about it.
Do you think there are any you said you did personality tests. Were there any indicators that are kind of those indicators of saying, "Hey, maybe this person isn't great working from home and they might not be the best fit for the team?"
Yeah, number one, I'll be honest, we don't hire people like right out of school. I believe that when you're just starting your career, you should be in an office. I think that you're going to learn best there. Sometimes even the department you start in may not be the department you're going to end in. You may start one place and then you get exposed to other things, and you learn from those other areas, and that's what part of what grows you, I think, as an employee and in your career. And you just learn through osmosis a lot of times. And I think working from home, it's harder to have that happen.
Mm,
Um, And so I mean, people reach out to us all the time wanting internships, and I know people that will have remote interns, but I feel like uh, the best things I ever learned were in an office space,
Yeah.
just, being near other people and, being able to sit in on different meetings. And I feel like it's harder to do that working remote. And the other thing is we do hire people that are through personality testing, you can learn, if people are very self-driven, if they are, if they require, there are certain people that really need to be told, you need to do step A, step B, step C, step, D, and that they don't know if they haven't been told step C, then they get stopped right there. And then they're just like, I'm paralyzed. I don't know what to do. And there are just certain other personality types that either know to come and ask if they don't know, or they can actually, be inventive and say, okay, well, I can connect the dots here and figure out how to get this done. There's a lot, people that are natural problem solvers, and that also are not afraid to take initiative to connect with other people. Sometimes people will sit and are quietly just waiting for somebody to tell them. And that is not a person that really, I think, thrives in a home environment. It needs to be somebody that it can insert themselves when they need to, or
Mhm.
say, hey, you know what? I'm actually kind of slow right now. I need, could I help you? Or, I mean, you need people that really are not afraid to speak up.
Mhm. What personality test do you use?
We use Culture Index,
Culture Index.
which is, one of many. I know there's tons of different ones. That's the one that we found the most helpful. It's like personality, sort of trait, identifying people's traits.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's very specific to, work environments.
Yeah. I love that because that's something that you don't know until you start working with somebody and you're trying to figure out,
Mhm.
wait, this isn't working and maybe why isn't it working? And then you've wasted time and money and you could potentially be damaging a client relationship too if you're not really hitting the deadlines that you need to be doing. So, you've always been virtual. I imagine that technology has shifted quite a bit since
It
you
has.
first started virtually. Could you tell us a little bit about just kind of the shifts from starting in 2008? I mean, I was working in a big firm at that point in time, so I'm trying to think of what we were even using at that point in time. Maybe teleconferencing?
Yeah, I
It was
know. Things have changed so much. I mean, I'll be honest, even it's been interesting even since COVID. COVID was such a game changer for us, even though I think there's been more remote companies than people realize, but a lot of people hit it. We were always out front with it. I mean, we actually used it as one of our unique selling propositions that we were operating remote, which meant, that our clients weren't paying for the office space. They were paying for talent. But I do think that, even COVID still, people never really quite understood it until COVID. And so then, I mean, before then, we were not doing as much teleconferencing. Zoom was not as big a thing. Um, but so that was a big game changer, I think. And then suddenly, we were remote, but so were our clients, which was, most of our clients before that were all working in offices. But I think it just helped people to embrace that, and so we've honestly since then. I mean, I think just the technology and there things are always coming out more and more that we can take advantage of, um, and even uh, just very robust like accounting systems and whatnot. I'd say our accounting system has changed. Our project management system has really evolved over the years. Um, just the way we communicate. I mean, all the funny thing is though, we've been using Skype since we started. We use Skype as our internal chat, and we use it for phone calls and whatnot. Um, Trying to think what other things. I think that's, I mean, I think that the technologies have evolved, but at the same time, really not that much. I mean, we
Mhm.
have been using Dropbox as our central server. Usually in an office, right? You have one central server and everything's saved there. But we've been using that for our basic, like, that's where all of our files live. Um,
Mhm.
and we have a creative server as well. And a lot of those things have stayed the same. The technologies themselves they have gamed up, right? Like, whereas you used to get a gigabit, now you're getting like, terabytes worth of data. And
Right.
um, so I think the truth is some of the technologies have stayed the same. We're still using the same companies, but they have continued to evolve, um, and which has been great.
Hmm.
But, there's always new things coming out, like we've been using Basecamp as our project management tool for, gosh, I think since, uh, 2018.
Hmm.
And, we're looking at maybe changing that next year because there's just so many other so many other project management tools,
Yeah.
that are just even more streamlined, that help create a lot more efficiencies. And so we're always trying to keep an eye on things to see if there's something, we're not like a quick, jump off onto the next hottest thing every moment, but
Yeah.
we do really, try to keep an eye on technology to make sure that we're utilizing it to the best of our abilities.
Yeah. I mean, if it's accomplishing the goal at the end of the day, why? I mean, you can spend tons and tons of internal time and hours trying to implement a new tool. So if it's not going to really gain you a lot of efficiency or really change a whole lot, it doesn't make sense to be jumping, at the
Totally agree.
next best thing. And I mean, imagine like you need to be able to communicate with your clients, you need to be able to share things with them, and you need to be able to like perform your internal work of being able to do the creative work that you do. So yeah, I can imagine that, communication and storage, like you're saying, like Skype
Mhm.
and Dropbox, that doesn't really change that much.
Mm-mm.
So those needs. So I would like to understand, we kind of talked about this really briefly before we pressed record. Um, you know, did you ever intend to grow an agency when you first got
Oh.
started and you were like,
That was
"Hey, I just
never the intent. That's funny
yeah."
you asked that question. I don't think anybody ever asks me that, but I mean, honestly, the goal originally was, uh, I just wanted to be able to work from home. I wanted to be able to I just wanted a job, right? I wanted to be a consultant and I wanted to, have an income that was somewhat comfortable. I mean, that was always the original intent. But I mean, this goes back to the personality profiling. Once we started doing it, and I looked at my personality profile and I was like, oh, okay, this is why I have an agency. And it's that whole like just never, like, oh, some sort of an opportunity comes. Like, of course, I'm not going to pass that up. And so I learned through that personality profiling that I'm just like a naturally sort of driven person and always just trying to like, find out what's next and grow. And, I sort of in me, like I didn't even realize I had it. So
Mm.
I guess if I did your personality profile, you probably have that too. I feel like
I
most
know,
of
I'm
us
very curious
entrepreneurs
now.
do.
Curious to, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs probably share some similar personalities, I would think,
Yeah,
or at least some traits.
definitely.
So, w- with that, as you were growing, and if, I mean, you probably were naturally like, oh, yeah, I'm going to like take this opportunity and do this. Okay, maybe I need another person. Did you run into kind of some blocks along the way of like, did you ever encounter the whole like, who am I? Why am I doing this? Am I the right person to grow this company? Did you ever run into anything like mindsets that you kind of had to push through in order to get to your next level?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There were those times where I had those moments, I think I definitely had um just feeling like I was faking it till I made it kind of thing, that fake it till you make it thing where you walk into a room one day and you're like, how is it that I'm standing in front of this board of directors of this huge healthcare system, standing up in front of them, telling them what they should be doing with their marketing. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, who am I, to be telling them that? And, and then you have to talk yourself through that because you recognize like, okay, well, I've had some successes and I've done okay. But I think definitely this imposter syndrome definitely crept up in me many times. And there were times also where I started recognizing that, there were times especially when my company was smaller, that the thing that I loved about marketing and the thing that I loved about advertising, I wasn't doing as much of that anymore. As the company grew, I was doing all the other things, human resources, administration, all the other functionality within a company, um, project management, just a lot of things that I didn't want to be doing and dealing with, you know, employee issues and the healthcare renewal and just all the things that didn't necessarily bring me a lot of joy. Um, but at the same time, I think there is a point, hopefully for most of us, where we get to a point where we're able to start hiring other people where those are the things that bring them joy, and we are able to sort of get back into our lane and be functioning in our highest and best use. And so that was always my goal. There were moments where I definitely wasn't there, but I feel like I'm there right now, which is nice. And so yeah, I think that's kind of been my journey. Has
Yeah.
it been the same for you?
Well, I mean, I think your business, you have a lot more employees than I do. So I'm like in this growth phase. I do think that there's the levels of pushing through
Mhm.
where you might think like, yeah, I'm capable of being here where I am right now, but then when you start to think about your goals for like the next level and you're starting to push forward, doubt creeps in, or maybe you get asked to do something that you think, wow, that's like outside of my depth. um Maybe it feels like a stretch, but then from an outside perspective, everybody would be like, yeah, of course you can do that, because if you've done all these other things, like you should be able to do that too. I think we're always like our own worst critic in what we think we're capable of. I mean, I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe,
No, I
I mean,
agree.
some
I
people
think
have more confidence, but
I think sometimes we assume that we're the only ones with head trash, right? Everybody else, I think if you, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think that's part of our makeup, right? Is that we are all, a lot of us are kind of faking it till we make it. We try to seem confident, and that's why people believe in us, and that's why we're good leaders, because people will rally behind that. But at the end, inside, sometimes we have doubts and we have anxiety and we have worries, and we have the hamster wheel in our brain that won't let us sleep in the middle of the night. I think that's natural, and I wish more of us kind of spoke truth to that,
Mhm.
because then I think that was part of why when I came to Entrepreneurs Organization, and it really fosters an environment of radical vulnerability in order to grow and connect with other people. And that made me feel seen and not alone. And it's actually helped me to grow as a person, because other people are sharing similar experiences. But I think definitely I've had those moments more times than I care to admit. But I've always, tried to, I think part of being an entrepreneur too is just that willingness to take risks, and that belief that if you don't risk, you don't necessarily ever grow, and you can't, I mean, we can't achieve if we always take the safest route. So, and my being able to look back to say, okay, some of my risks have really paid off. And so just that belief, I think, not even necessarily in the idea, but the belief that somehow we'll figure it out.
Mm.
That's one of the things my culture in Culture Index, you have uh, a consultant that you work with, which is nice because they sort of help you interpret the data, and to, if you look at, like, hey, I've got this role I'm hiring for, it's kind of a different role for our company. These are the type of applicants I have. They can kind of help interpret the data. And it's funny because when he talks about my personality profile, which is called the enterpriser. And he said, Tracy is that person. When he talks, because he'll come in and talk to our company to help explain the different personality types so that we better understand each other. Because sometimes I do things and they're all scratching their heads and saying, why is she doing that? Doesn't make any sense. But he said, Tracy is the person that you come in one day and she said, so see that mountain over there? We're going to go climb that mountain. Come on, let's go. And the rest of the team is saying, wait a minute, but how are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? And, do we have the right shoes on? And what's the best path for us to take up there? And Tracy's like, I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. And it's just, you need both of those types of people, right? But it is that confidence of knowing that, like, okay, I've climbed a few mountains before, and I've I'm a problem solver and I can figure it out as I go. And that's, so similar to entrepreneurship and building a company is that's that's how we're wired. But thank God we have these other people. Um, because every once in a while we end up in a crevasse and we need somebody to help get us out.
We have
That's why
somebody.
we have fractional CFOs.
Oh, yes, I like that. So I'm curious, like as you were building your company, like what were some of the first gaps that you filled that you felt like these were like your own, where you realized you were not, it was not a strength of yours. And you're like, I need to hire somebody to come in and do this. What were some of those first hires that kind of helped round out the whole organization skill set?
Sure. Early hires, we did hire uh, an account manager. Like we had somebody because I was trying to do account management, and I realized that we needed somebody else that could help to facilitate that. Because as we grew and had more clients, I couldn't do them all, and so I was brought in an account manager, and that was helpful. So those were some of the early roles, and then we had another creative person. We had a creative person that came in, and then it was really for me, like finance was a big thing because I ended up doing I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like I did our taxes the first couple of years. It's frightening.
Oh,
Like, whoa, don't anybody look. I think I did it in like TurboTax or something like that. And then there was a point I remember when I was trying to do it, and we'd gotten to a point where, like, from a size perspective, I was really out of my comfort zone. And trying to do our books and whatnot. When I finally brought in a bookkeeper to kind of sort it all together, and she came in and figured it out, and hired a tax person to do the taxes, and then there was a point along that path from the finance realm where I realized like I'd outgrown that bookkeeper,
mm,
and that I needed to game up in terms of, the bookkeeping. I needed somebody who really understood, finance strategy, and really was looking in terms of not just, okay, I'm putting books together, but actually like doing reporting. And here's your monthly financials, and really understanding kind of where we were along the path. And so that was another step in that finance journey for me. And trying to think from an internal perspective, it was always sort of like little pieces and parts. Like ad agencies have typical roles, and a lot of us were wearing many hats. And then finally, we'd be like, okay, this person can't wear four hats anymore. We got to
mm,
divide these hats up, and so there was that path along the way. But I would say, in terms of, you know, I think the biggest thing for me, I don't know if I told you about this. I feel like I thought we had talked about this. I maybe just high level said, oh, the fractional CFO, because I really see the benefit in that, because that was a big part of my journey. And that's EO helped me with that as well, was that
mm,
I've I think I've always believed in a growth mindset. Um, we did, I think, speak about that a little bit, and that's a
mhm,
part of, what I even look for in our employees. I want people they're not just wanting, they want to come and do their job, but they also want to grow as human beings, as people, not just in their career, not just people looking to climb a career ladder, but just grow and learn and evolve and always be doing better. And so that's for me something that, like I said, EO has really helped foster that in me. And one of the things for me was, as I was running my business, I had hired a fractional CFO at one point, to help me with my business. But I came into my business as a marketer, right? I didn't ever go to business school. I have a communications degree, so I don't understand or I didn't understand business finance when I started my company. And I hired this fractional CFO, and I just trusted her that she would tell me what I needed to know. And so I put the onus on her to sort of drive that relationship.
mm,
And one of the things I love about EO is that they have a lot of learning opportunities. It's a constant, it's like if there's anything you want to learn, they have some sort of resource. It's online, they have universities, they have all these special schools and all of that. And one of the things that they do have every year, in through partnerships with different colleges too, they have through the Wharton School of Finance, they do a week-long like finance and operations class, and it's kind of heavy on the finance portion, which I said, you know what, I really need some help in this area. So I went and took advantage of that. And I will tell you, it was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
We, at that point, I came back from that university, and it was nice because it was Wharton professors, but they had put it together really with entrepreneurs and business owners in mind. So the
Yeah.
whole thing was crafted really with business owners in mind. And I won't even lie, like there was plenty of it that was over my head, but I took prolific notes and I learned so much. And I came back and it really flipped that relationship I had with that fractional CFO on its head, because it put me in the driver's seat of my business's finances. And I told her, I was like, we're changing the reporting structure that we're doing. These are the reports I want with you now. You're going to have a monthly call with me. You're going to report to me on these things. These are the indicators we're going to be looking at. You should be telling me this. These are the things, I mean, it really just, it flipped it it's on its head, my whole, basic perspective of my business. And it's never stopped. Like since then, I've continued to try to learn from other people in finance, and I'm continually asking different, people, different questions. I really, I really have. It's funny. My CPA has told me the company that does my finances now, that she's like, you definitely have the financials of a much larger company, because I'm looking at things, not just in the past, but indicators for the future. And I really just encourage other entrepreneurs to look at their business through that lens of, you don't have to be an expert. I mean, I still hire other people. I've got plenty of other people that are in the driver's seat of actually doing the analysis, running the financials, all of that. But at least being able to know and understand them and interpret them, and to be able to, push for smarter financials and smarter reporting, and being in the driver's seat of your business, because nobody cares more about your business than you do.
Yeah.
And so that was really a huge learning for me. And I do think that and I will say, I do have a fractional CFO now, and I mean, that relationship is critical, because he asks me a lot of questions that I wouldn't think about, and challenges me, and it's a really great back and forth. Um, but I do encourage entrepreneurs, as part of your growth and your growth mindset, to really to learn and understand, and not just ever say, that's somebody else's job. I don't need to know that.
Yes.
This is what I like to do. I'm going to do this over here.
Uh-huh.
There's danger in that.
Yeah. I mean, the financials are, I mean, all the time we run into business owners that they're like, oh yeah, that's not really my thing. And I get that. You don't need to be spending all your time, if you're a business owner, like looking over your financials. That should not be your number one, but understanding it and being able to interpret a P&L, even if that takes some time, like maybe whoever it is kind of coaching you how to do it for a while. But I think being open to the fact that you can learn it. I know a lot of people kind of shy away from it because they kind of are maybe like, numbers aren't my thing, or, it's not, it's not me. I don't like looking at the numbers. Or some people get intimidated by it, thinking that they are like, need to know math. Like
Mhm.
it's some kind of like, they kind of think of accounting sometimes as this like really high level financial understanding. And but it's, accounting is typically like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Like we're not doing anything outside of third grade math over here. To be able to run a few ratios and maybe like, be able to understand variances and things like that. It's not super high level. So I always try to like encourage people, like, even if that intimidates you in any kind of way, looking at it very simply it's like learning to read. You're just kind of learning to read a slightly different story when you're learning to read maybe a profit and loss or a balance sheet or something like that. So another one of our guests, Amalia Martino, she also said that she took like a college kind of crash course of financials for entrepreneurs specifically. And that was like majorly beneficial to her before hiring the CFO role, because she just
Yeah.
felt a lot more empowered to even know if that CFO was going to be
Mhm.
doing a good job for her, you
Yeah.
know? So
I would completely agree with
I love
that.
that.
I would totally agree with that. And I mean, for me, it was almost like walking into a dark room and just turning a light on and suddenly
Mm-hmm.
see everything and it all made sense rather than walking around bumping into the
Yeah.
furniture, right? Yeah.
Did you have any kind of fear of going into that, or were you just curious and you're like, "Hey, I need to know this?"
Um, I definitely fear, maybe just fear of like, would I understand anything that was going on? And I will be honest, there were times because there were people in the room that did have MBAs and even some people with like a finance background. And so there were people that were talking about things in there that I mean, I'll be honest, if I that were completely over my head. And I feel like I could go back and take that whole entire class again, and I would take just as much away from it. It would be at a different level now because I've
Mhm.
actually took back what the basic stuff that I learned, took it back, and then I've grown a lot since then. But I think that's the thing is just learn what you can learn. It's not like you have to go in and if you took a week long college class that if you understand even half of it, you're still better off than you were to begin with. And
Yes.
just realizing that, I think there was in my head, like, I have no idea what they're even talking about, and I don't even know what these words mean, but still, I took away a lot more than I realized, and it was tremendously beneficial.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I love that. So, I wonder if we could skip to talking a little bit about your business now and what are some of the things that you pay attention to as you're running the business currently? Are there any metrics that you really keep a really close watch on as you're running the business?
you mean more from a finance perspective?
Finance or operational? So, any kind of metrics that matter to you.
Mm, Tricks that matter to me. You know, we're constantly looking at, just the balance. Like I'm in a business where we're billable hours, sort of like an attorney or a CPA and whatnot. So, we do look a lot at we want to make sure that our employees are, getting their work done, that they're billable and that they're spending their time doing billable work. We also want to look at metrics to make sure people are not overworking, that we don't have people that are um, over extending themselves and burning themselves out because that can be a leading indicator for people who are going to get burnout.
Hmm.
We also look at one of the things I look closely at, and that it took me a while to be able to find this data, but was just making sure that we aren't over servicing our clients because there's
Hmm.
times something that sometimes we I think, my business is like 99% women. And I think as women, we tend to be pleasers and we want to make sure people are happy and we want to do everything we can. And, I think a lot of the people that are on our team are just really kind, lovely people. And they want to do what's best for the agency, but they also want to do what's best for the client. And so they may have a tendency to do more than what the client has budgeted for. Uh,
Mm.
and the numbers will show that, it's like one of those things like, where's a balance, a delicate balance in that. Like sometimes, yeah, you're going to go a little above and beyond, and that's fine. But if you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, we're like losing money big time on that client. We love them and we want them to love us too. But at the end of the day, it's a business.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things that we kind of look closely at. I would imagine that's something that you have to look at within your own company,
Mhm.
as well as in y'all's clients' companies. So
Do you,
sorry, my Texas
by
y'all just came out.
I love it. I love it. I'm from Tennessee. We use y'all all the time.
I know.
Um,
Sometimes I try to like squash it, but it pops out now and
yeah.
again.
I love that word because it's also like very gender neutral. Everybody can be y'all.
Everybody can.
Um, so on that topic of over servicing, because I've actually never had a conversation with anybody on this podcast about that before, but I do see that as a common problem in a service-based business. How are you managing to that? Is it setting a budget, saying, hey, we know that this is how much this project should take, and if you're going over that, you're probably over servicing, or are there some other things that you can be doing to watch for that?
Just creating awareness and helping, coach around that. We've noticed there's some employees that tend to do it more than others, and I think, um, you know, uh, it's just sort of continually coaching and helping them see the numbers, because I think sometimes you feel like you're doing the right thing, but when you see the actual financials, it's sort of an aha to people, and helping them really understand what the action that they're taking and the behavior is doing from a business standpoint, because it feels to them like I'm doing something good, I'm helping these people, and they don't understand that at the end of the day they're helping them, but they're also setting up a behavior where the client gets starts to feel like, oh, well, this is my service level. This is what if I'm paying, let's say, I'm just going to use it like $10,000 a month for this service, and I'm getting serviced at this level, but you're really only paying for this level. Then they begin to expect this level, and so then you're creating this dependency, and so then you're also the other thing is then that person should have extra capacity right here, right? If they're paying for this is
Yes.
capacity that they should have to work on other clients, and then they don't. And so
Right.
just sort of helping them see visually through the numbers what that over servicing is doing.
Yeah.
Because I think they don't necessarily understand it when they're just, entering their time card. You don't
Hmm.
understand at the end of the day, like what it does from a number standpoint. And I think that sometimes helps people to interpret it a little better.
Yeah, and I think that
Do
it
you have
it
any other ideas?
well,
Please
no, I
tell
think that's
me.
good. I think that it could be damaging actually to the client at the end of the day. Like maybe in the moment they're really happy that they got that extra work, but if then you have to turn around as the business owner and have a conversation with them that says, actually, we need to be like raising your fees. If you want this level of service, we need to be increasing your fees, and that puts everybody in a tricky situation where it obviously they don't want their fees raised if they feel like they've always had that level of service. Why are you adding an extra 20% or something on top of
Mhm.
it?
Exactly.
Um, but it just, yeah, it definitely complicates the relationship if you are going to be doing that. So I think that communication with a team member that's doing that regularly is probably the best way to go, and helping them see, what budgets they need to have so they can work within constraints. I think that's the right thing to do. Um, let's see. I guess if you, as I know we have to wrap up here in just a few minutes, but as you've been growing the business, what do you think has been one of the hardest financial challenges for you?
I think the biggest thing for me was getting to a point, and I came away from the actual class that I did at Wharton with like having a mind shift in my mind in terms of looking at my business not solely as like my income. And that was one of the things that they talked a lot about, was that almost looking at the business separate, like not like, oh, at the end of the year, I made this amount of money. I'll take that out of my business and now I start over again. But instead, really looking at that business as, its own sort of micro organ or like organism basically, and that what my business created I could use to feed the business, to grow the business, and to reinvest in the business in order to grow it. And so that was a sort of a financial shift for me, and I think it's paid off for sure, but it is definitely, I think I think that's sort of the difference, to be honest, in many ways between a business owner and an entrepreneur. Is that, there are people that have a business and they are looking at it the way I originally thought I was looking at my business, as just a job. It's a means for income. But then an entrepreneur is somebody that's looking to grow the business. And if you really, really want to grow your business and you really, really want it to continue to not hit a lot of times people will hit this plateau and then it just continues on that level. And I think it's typically at that point where you either are going to just have to realize you're probably going to stay the same, or you're going to have to start looking at it differently and taking the revenue that you're making, not taking it home for yourself, but instead of reinvesting it in the business in order to make it better and to grow it and to get it to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. I think that's a common problem when people are first starting, especially when you have that mindset of like, this is a job. When you're starting the business as this is a job, you're thinking income goes directly into my pocket. Like somebody pays me $5,000 for a project, like that's $5,000 I can do something with. But yeah, thinking of the business as like its own entity that needs to be able to survive, even if it doesn't have, income for a little bit. It is a big mindset shift to be able to think about that and, have retained earnings. Actually, if you ever look at your balance sheet, people, there's this little line item in the equity section called retained earnings. And that is a representative of that earnings that you've had over the years that you've actually reinvested back into the business in some way, whether it's savings, cash that you have on hand, or you've bought assets or something in your business, or you've just, you're actually building something inside your business. That's kind of an indicator of how much you've done. And if you've been pulling everything out and maybe even borrowing money and pulling money out of the business, that retained earnings will actually be negative. So I would just encourage everybody to go and actually look at your balance sheet and see what that retained earnings number says, because I think it would be kind of a good little indicator for people to see, like, are you actually reinvesting into the business, or maybe is the business kind of providing more for you personally, which is not a bad thing. There just needs to be a balance, I think, is what we always need to be working on, is how much do you need to keep in the business? How much can you take home?
Yeah,
And
for
sometimes
sure.
it's a dance.
For sure. And I mean, I think the other thing that if you want to talk about challenges is the reality of like, hey, looking at it like that. The truth is for me, like after now it's been like 15 years I've been running this business, there's going to be, I mean, realizing that part of owning a business is that you are not all the time it's not always going to be just feast, right? There will be times of famine. And, I have experienced that before. And believe me, my business did really, really well with feast, 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 feast for years. And so when I finally did hit a famine, I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what? And then realizing that in those times, the first cut to happen was myself. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to keep the entity healthy and I want to keep it strong. For me, historically, the last thing I cut is my people. Like, you know, uh, I'll go without a salary before I'm going to start cutting people out.
Yeah.
So, and that's been I mean, it's a hard thing, but you do what the business needs because, a lot of times some of these people, they're incredibly talented. That's the last thing I
Yeah.
want to lose.
Yeah.
So if I can keep my people, um, that's a lot of times what will help you get you through those tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to replace those people. And it's a big financial
Mhm.
challenge, or a big financial outlay to actually find somebody again, retrain them back up, get them to a place that they're profitable again for the agency. So,
For sure.
yeah. So, kind of the takeaway from that, try to save where you can in those times of feast. And, it's great to have more at home and whatnot. But also planning for the future is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Well, Tracy, I feel like I could keep talking to you, but I do want to respect your time because I think our time is up. But I want to make sure that people can reach out to you if they would like to either learn more about your agency. So your website is creativenoggin.com, correct?
Correct.
And
That's correct.
Noggin is Noggin, Creative Noggin. And is there any other way that people can connect with you?
Sure, they can email me. My email is Tracy, it's Tracy at creativenoggin.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and being open and vulnerable, talking about the journey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.